An important period in the history of the church. The background material actually for the Reformation. We may touch upon Reformation today a little bit. Nationalism is now on the rise. The empire consisted of many nations, but they were all proud to say that we are Romans. But they are not proud to say we are Romans, we are Germans, we are Italians, we are French. So the national feelings begin to come up. So once the national feelings begin to come up, even for the Pope, who is head of the whole Western Europe, it's more difficult for him to control his church because, people think more parochially, So that became a problem. The political structure became very disturbing because now the French wanted to control larger portions of Europe. The Germans want to control more. Italians want to snatch more and have bigger. So actually, once they were all part of the Roman Empire, therefore they were not fighting each other. The emperor made sure that everybody, but now the emperors are gone, nationality has become more important, then always the problems came. There were fighting between nations which were originally part of the Roman Empire. That is one of the beginnings of Reformation because people begin to think, more parochially. So that begins to give people the freedom to think independently. Before the emperor will think for everybody or the Pope will think for everybody. What the emperor will say will be final. But now what emperor says is not necessarily final. Some will accept, others will not accept. The same sort of things begin to come with the Pope also. And papacy also received very serious wounds because the unity of the medieval church, is lost. Now Roman Catholics and Orthodox. The Christianity is divided into two. So again, there was rivalry, And this division in Christianity, Christendom, has again weakened the church as a whole. Then came the Crusades. Of course, the Crusades have done much good, we said that. Temporarily they liberated Jerusalem. More than that, the Western Europe was just barbaric, The Western Europe was really bad. They had no culture. Actually, Eastern Europe was very cultured, but now more people from the Western Europe has gone for the Crusades, and when they came back, they have seen some culture. The Spanish people, for example, they were cultured people. The Arabs were more cultured. They have met many other Orientals. So the Western people begin to feel that, hey, we need to do something about it. Our people can read and write, our people don't have culture. All that our people have the brutality, the force. They can swing the sword. But they begin to understand that life is more than power. The intellectual aspect has more importance than the brutal aspect. So the intellectual life of the West began to improve as a result of it. Then different schools of people came into existence who taught things contrary to church and state. Within the Roman Empire itself, as I said, the Manichaeans and the Albigenses and such groups, the Waldenses, they all begin to come and teach things that were not necessarily traditional. They begin to see things differently. So a new trend is established. When you give people freedom to think, naturally, new things will come up. When people don't have the freedom to think and someone else think and you just accept their thinking, then you are kind of a slave. So with the Waldenses coming and they were kind of hostile to the church, they taught many things. They went out preaching and the simplicity of life, the necessity of education, and they did not believe in purgatory or the prayers and masses for the dead. They did not consider that church buildings are any important at all. So a new trend of, up to this time everything revolved around the cathedrals and about the churches. Once Constantine became Christian and Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, Christians very seldom worship the Lord in houses. The idea of the house church is gone. Actually, the house churches cannot be taken as part of the doctrine of the church because at that time people worshipped in the houses only because they didn't have the freedom to do anything else. They could not build a separate building because Christianity was not approved by anybody. The Jewish people want, the pagans want, the Roman Empire didn't. So to have a building of their own was impossible. So they met in houses. But now that Christianity is official, the first thing they have done is building churches. Of course, some definitely opposed. Whether building cathedrals and church buildings, whether it helped the quality of Christianity or it hurt the quality of Christianity is a good question. But I definitely like the architecture of the cathedrals, if nothing else. There is a special feeling you go into some of these cathedrals, just sit down there. There is an atmosphere. I don't necessarily want to say there is godliness there, but there is you altogether begin to think and feel and behave differently. In the cathedrals and all, children won't be running around, they will not be making noise. But in the homes, children are free, because it's their home. They don't see it as a church. The reverence that generally is generated in the church buildings are not generated in home meetings. This is a fact. It's very difficult to restrict children in the home. They will be running here, there, in the bedroom, that room, this room, climbing there and here. But you go to any cathedrals, they will not be climbing on the windows and everywhere else. They will be quietly sitting there. So naturally there is something. There is something. That sometimes we miss. But is that godliness? No, that's not godliness. We know that. But yet, nothing wrong with that sort of a atmosphere. So it's not altogether that bad, definitely. Inquisition was something that started out by the Roman Church. The Waldenses were appointed the leaders of the Inquisition to question the heretics and to decide whether they deserved beatings, scourgings, or burning, or prison. So the Inquisition was a very serious thing. And the Dominican friars, they would question these people, and if they are found heretic, and they will be given a chance to recant their teachings, and then there will be a punishment, whatever they decide. Sometimes even after they recant, they will be burnt, depending upon the seriousness of the heresy that they were teaching. When a heretic is questioned by the friars, if he refuses to answer, last week I mentioned, these friars had the right to beat them, scourge them, until they answer and confess. Sometimes in the process of these beatings, many people died because they have decided they are not going to answer to the question of these people. So many Albigenses and Waldenses, they themselves were victims of Inquisition. Their number was so great in South France that said that to destroy them was too big for Inquisition. So Pope called for mob action. People marched against them and just killed them. For 20 years, blood flowed like water. What was beautiful cities and villages in France now laid waste. So the Roman Catholic Church in Western Europe and all were undergoing some very serious changes. The calmness is gone, the calmness in the church, and people keeping quiet and mum is gone. Some people are now bold enough to question, and some are willing even to die for what they believe is true. So the Waldenses took shelter in the high valleys of Alps mountain. It is said that they are still living there. When the Reformation all took place, they were there. At the time of Reformation, they accepted the teachings of Luther and all. Therefore, they became Protestants. And it is said that of all the people who broke away from Roman Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, only the Waldenses are a group who survived. Others were all destroyed. You can just think of the Inquisition. It was so terrible, so terrible. Now last week we started making mention about John Wycliffe. He is called the morning star of Reformation. The morning star of Reformation. Yes, he was a great man. In the latter part of the Middle Ages, the doctrine and the government of the Roman Catholic Church came under heavy criticism. Because the government of the Roman Catholic Church was very inhuman government. These popes and cardinals, they were living very carnal life. They said they have authority from God. Constantine gave it, Peter gave it, Christ gave it, and they claimed all that. Using that one, they were abusing people. So people begin to question, who gave you this authority? Peter didn't have the authority to beat anybody. How can you who sit on the throne of Peter claim that you have the right to kill people? Apostles and Jesus, they never killed anybody. They came not to kill, but to give life. But you are killing. Two prominent people who questioned the Roman Catholic doctrines and the government were John Wycliffe and John Huss. You can buy from any standard bookstores, movies on their lives. Yes, CDs are available. If you have never watched, I highly recommend that you watch these men, John Wycliffe, John Huss, William Tyndale, even Henry VIII. He has played a great part also in the Reformation. Some of these great men, they're all available in any standard bookstores. So, for 2 hours or 3 hours movies you can watch. They are pretty true to the history. Yes. Martin Luther. Well, there are a number of them. John Calvin. All these great men of Reformation are there. And Wycliffe, in 320, he was born in England. He was an Englishman. He studied at the Oxford University and later became a professor in the same university. He was a very learned man and very godly man.
1320?
Yes, 1320, 1320. In 1376, Wycliffe began to criticize the priest, the clergy. That's when the problem starts. 1376. Yes. He pointed out that wealth and political power has so corrupted the church that it badly needs a reform. And that was a true statement. The political power with the Roman Empire declining, the power that belonged once to the emperor now rested in the hands of the Pope. And they used it. And now the different states like France or England or Italy, Germany, they were ruled by, local princes and kings, but they had jurisdiction only upon that limited area. The Roman emperor had jurisdiction upon a larger area. So what happened? These popes replaced the emperor, and of course these princes had to listen to Pope. And Pope was a big manipulator. What he would do, if the Germans won't listen, he will tell the British and the French, send your armies and attack Germany. you know. So they will come and attack. So Germany will run to Pope and say, save me. Oh, Pope will say, okay, I'll do. Conditions, number 1, 2, 3. Agreed. So he used that. He always, uses these different princes and kings to attack each other to achieve his purposes. So if anyone is not listening, he will use it. So the political power in the hand of the Pope has really, maddened him. Really maddened him. They are drunk with power. And power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's so true. Wherever power is, there is always a tendency to corruption. If power is not having, check and balance, power will corrupt. Anywhere, at a miniature level or a big level, micro level or macro level, doesn't matter. Power always corrupts. Even when the power is in the hand of a very godly man, there is a possibility, because power is like drinking, alcohol. You drink it after some time, then you get drunk. So those who are drinking power, they get drunk with power. And then the abuses begin to come, So all the popes were now drunk with power. And John Wycliffe, of course, pointed out that, you people, are drunk with power and money. Of course, they were getting wealth like anything. Every country's wealth was flowing to Rome. All the gold, they didn't want cash, they want gold and silver. It was coming in. And Pope was living, like anybody. The vicar of Jesus Christ, he was living like a God, who owns everything. So luxurious. So Huss and John Wycliffe, these people begin to speak against it. And whenever you begin to speak against these things, you naturally expect that you're going to have trouble. Yes.
John Huss, they are all together?
No, they were not together. They are different timings and all that. Yeah, John Huss is from Bohemia, and John Wycliffe is from England. They are from different areas also. But they all saw the same problems, and therefore they all attacked.
They're contemporaries?
No, they are not contemporaries. John Huss is 1369 he was born, and John Wycliffe was born 1320. So there's almost 50 years difference there. You can say contemporary, but when John Huss was born, John Wycliffe was 50 years old, so you cannot quite call contemporary. So by the time John Huss started his ministry, John Wycliffe is gone from the area. So they are not contemporary, but they are contemporary in the sense that the seed sown by John Wycliffe, John Huss watered it. That sort of. So the Reformation is always going like that. One person sows, the other person waters. It's done like that. Just not one person or one incident has brought Reformation. Reformation is a cumulative effect of the ministry of so many people. Little here, little there, people have pointed out what is wrong with the doctrines and the teachings. And people get them. And when the cumulative effect comes, that little here, little there become just massive, like a mountain, An ocean is made of drops of water, Just like this Reformation is also like that. So John Wycliffe, he began to point out about the wealth and the political power, how that has corrupted the church. So he said a reform is needed. The church must return to the simplicity and the purity and the poverty of the apostles. That is what he preached. The church must return to the simplicity, the purity and the poverty. The apostles said, we have no gold and silver. We only have the name of Jesus with us. And the popes say that we have no name of Jesus, but we have gold and silver. That's what. A pope has told a bishop that, what do you think about that statement of Peter? He said, we have no gold and silver. God has blessed us with all the gold and silver. The poor bishop said, but Father, we don't have what he had, the name of Jesus. See, that's true, There were many people, even priests and bishops, who were concerned about it, but either they didn't have the guts to say, these things out. There are a lot of people at any given time in the church also, they are very much grieved by the things that are going on in the church as excesses and the carnality and all, but they don't have the courage. That's why Jesus said, he who hath an ear, let him hear. We all know that. We all got the two flaps here and a hole here, so the sound will go in. But that's not what Jesus was saying. That those who have the ears means people. If you hear what you ought to hear and then take action. That is not limited to leadership. So there were many people in the church, even bishops and priests, but they didn't have the courage, the guts, the backbone to stand up. The church must return to simplicity. He called the Pope Antichrist. Yeah, he was the first one actually to call Pope is the Antichrist. And in a sense, he is. He taught that not the church but the Bible is the basis of faith. Yes. But the church says there's no binding unless it agrees with the Bible. So Wycliffe said that Bible is the basis of faith. God did not give us any other book, only one book, that is the Bible. The church, Roman Catholic Church always teach that we gave you the Bible. That's what the Roman Catholic says. The church gave you the Bible. But it's very interesting which book in the Bible the church gave. Was Matthew written by the church? Mark, Luke, John? Acts of the Apostles written by church or popes? Was the Romans written by the church? Corinthians written by the church?
Is that what's taught even today?
Even today, yes. No, you talk to the Catholic Church, there's a church gave us the Bible.
Only the Catholic Church.
Only the Catholic Church will say that. The Orthodox also will say that sometimes, but not as much. They have a little better sense. Yes, and they have a little better sense, but interestingly, the church did not give us the Bible. Of course, we could say that the church preserved the Bible. Maybe you can say that. Church preserved the Bible. But giving the Bible is different. If I gave you something to hand over to the other person, you cannot say that the handing over person has given the book. No, the book is given by whoever written the book. God has given the book to the church. So the statement that the church gave the Bible itself is a lie. It's a blatant lie, said only to make people to believe that church has the authority, not the Bible has the authority. So this sort of thing. So John Wycliffe was a man who stood up and said, no, church has no authority really in the lives of the people, only the Bible. The Bible. At this time the Catholic Church was using the Latin Bible and nobody understood it. That's, Of course, Latin was the language of Europe basically, but average person didn't know. The Englishman knew only English, Frenchman knew only French, and the German knew only German. Italians knew Latin. Latin language, few. So they were using, the Latin Vulgate of Jerome. That's what they used. So when they say something in Latin and read it and nobody understood, it is like the Muslims praying. Who understands? Even the man himself, you ask them, what did you say? He may say, I don't know. There was a time when the Mass was said in Latin language or in Syriac language, the Suryani. People thought it was something heavenly, man, what was it? Barak More, Guriel, all those things, But then, when it is all in vernacular language, this is what you are saying all this time. So people lost the respect for these things. So, sometimes you gain the respect, you demand the respect, not rightly, but using the ignorance of the people. That's what they have done. So using the Latin. So Wycliffe wanted the people to read the Bible in their own language. Wycliffe said that, a day will come when the ordinary farmer who is plowing the bulls, the oxen in the field, will be reciting Bible verses in his vernacular language, he said. At that time, for anybody to translate the Bible was a crime. Only the clergy could read the Bible. Laymen could not read the Bible. Even nuns could not read the Bible. പള്ളിയിൽ പറയില്ലേ, കപ്പ്യാർക്ക് വായിക്കാവുന്നതേ ഉള്ളൂ, ലേഖനമേ ഉള്ളൂ, സുവിശേഷം വായിക്കാവുന്ന ആർക്കേ ഉള്ളൂ, അച്ഛനേ ഉള്ളൂ, വേറെ ആർക്കും വായിക്കാനൊക്കെ ഇല്ല. So when Wycliffe said the day is coming when, I'll make sure that the average peasant will be quoting from the, his vernacular Bible. So he translated the Bible into English. That's what he did. He translated the Bible. And he also wrote many books. So Wycliffe is remembered. That's why Wycliffe translation, Wycliffe was the first one to translate basically the Bible into any vernacular language other than the Latin Vulgate. Old Testament was, of course, translated, the Bible was translated into Syriac language. That was the first version of the Bible is the Syriac. All the other versions that came in the 2nd century, the Syriac version. That's what the early Christians in Kerala, the Syrian Christians were using the Syriac language. That's why we are called Syrian Christians, Suryanic Christianity. Our worship was in Syriac language. Apostle Thomas didn't come there. If he came, he would have brought the Greek Bible. Wherever the apostles went, they took the Greek Bible because that was the only Bible then available. But the Kerala Christian didn't have the Greek Bible. They had the Syriac Bible because Syrian migration, there were 3 Syrian migrations from Syria. There was persecution for Christians in Syria, and therefore they migrated to India. India was a haven for, such people. Hinduism is, it's a religion that accommodates, other faiths. It has very elastic. So, it can expand. Buddhism or Jainism or, different religions came here. Of course, they did not prosper, flourish. Because Hinduism is so elastic, it can accommodate any other religion, but it allowed people to come. Only recently, some of the what you call ultras, Hindus and all come, and then otherwise Hinduism was very, very long-suffering, tolerant, probably right word is tolerant religion, it was. So Wycliffe translated, and which was a very major sin, but he did it. He translated the Bible and he wrote many books. Wycliffe's disciples carried his Bible and his teachings all over England, basically all over England. Wycliffe started making disciples. He will recruit people. They were all basically students from Oxford University. He was a professor, respected professor there. One who was respected by everybody for scholarship. So he will recruit these, they will make them lay preachers. There was a name, they are called Lollards. Yes, they were called Lollards in history. So Lollards, Lollards. So these Lollards were taught the basic doctrines of, that Jesus, the position of Jesus Christ and, the way of salvation and all these things and the evil of the Roman Catholic Church, the wrong doctrines. Then he sent them out to preach. Pope and clergy became very uneasy about them. First of all, laymen were not allowed to preach in England. You have to have a license to preach. So these people don't have a license to preach. Secondly, these people are preaching against the excesses in the Roman Catholic Church. They are preaching the Bible, what the Bible teaches. So, the Roman Catholics tried to destroy even Wycliffe. They wanted to burn Wycliffe, but somehow could not, One of the reasons could not is because many nobles in England supported Wycliffe. They gave him protection, and therefore Pope 1384, so they could not really kill him. They would have done it. But the lowlads are going around and preaching in hundreds, hundreds, and the whole England was really filled with the biblical teachings, and a lot of people were coming to the truth. The lowlads denounced Pope, they denounced clergy, they denounced the doctrines the Romanists taught, the purgatory and mass and all these things they have denounced. Besides, they practice poverty. They acknowledge that Bible is the only authority for faith and life. Traditions have no value, they say. Traditions have no value. Of course, the Roman Catholic Church teaches that Bible plus traditions plus the ex cathedra declaration pronouncements of the Pope. These are the three sources of truth. And among the three, which has the greatest power? The popes. The popes are the greatest. The Pope can set aside any teaching of the Bible. All that needs is a declaration from sitting on the throne of Peter and say that homosexuality is not sin. It ceased to be a sin. Divorce is not bad or sin. It ceased to be a sin. And they can make sins or they can delete sins. So that's sort of. Second is tradition for them. Bible is the last. But the interesting thing is, which is the oldest tradition in Christendom? The oldest traditions in Christendom are found in the New Testament, because there was no book written in Christendom before the New Testament was written. No Christian literature is found older than the New Testament. The earliest Christian writings came after the Bible, like the Didache. They came after the Bible. So what are you talking about? Your tradition. There is no book, no written as to the practices of the Christians other than the Bible. So you want to know what apostles did and what early Christians did? The only tradition you can go is the Bible. What did they do? And Bible was written, in the first century itself. And so any tradition that came after the Bible was written, what value that has? It has no value. Because what is written cannot be undone by what is not written. So these people, they questioned the validity of the Roman Catholic teachings and the authority. The preaching of the lowlads all over England turned the people against the clergy. That's the sense. Sunday the clergy came to preach, but people have heard the lowlads preaching 6 days of the week. So when they went into the church, they heard heresy. The people understood what the Bible teaches. So you can just think about the difficulty these priests were facing. They are really faced. Finally, the Roman bishops and clergy influenced the political rulers and the church to pass a law that allowed them to burn the heretics. That's what the bishops and the clergy got together and appealed both to the political leaders, that is the kings and the princes, and also to the Pope, that authority must be given to these priests and all to try these people and burn the heretics. Well, many lowlads were burned on stakes. Even in the 15th century, many lowlads were burned. This made the lowlads less and less in number. Finally, those who were left were driven to hiding, and the Reformation was in full swing. So the lowlads really did not last very long after the death of John Wycliffe. Yes. For a while, yes. They have done their job, but then one by one they were burnt. And those the few who left, they were driven out of the country. But John Wycliffe's contribution to Reformation cannot be underestimated or overlooked. He is called the morning star of Reformation because in the dark sky, John Wycliffe was the first star to rise, to show some light and direction. So everybody, will be grateful to that man. I again recommend that you watch John Wycliffe if you want to know in detail, the life and labors of this man and his teachings and the lowlands and all that. John Huss was another man. John Huss was influenced by the teachings of John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe's teachings spread countries beyond England. Bohemia was one of such countries. John Huss accepted the teachings of Wycliffe with enthusiasm. He was born in 1369 and was trained for priesthood. He was well educated. He became the dean of the Faculty of Theology in the University of Prague, which was the capital of Bohemia. And later he became the head of that institution. So he was a well-learned man, just like John Wycliffe. These men were not ignorant, stupid men, but they were well-learned, scholars. They had studied the Bible, they found out the truth, and they preached to the people. John Huss began to preach against Roman Catholics' false teachings. Much before Huss's birth, opposition to Roman Catholic Church was growing strong in Bohemia because the Waldenses were numerous in Bohemia. They have already questioned many of the false teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. So the Bohemians were, they were already oriented towards these false teachings. They had some understanding. The nobles and the ordinary laymen accepted Huss's teaching enthusiastically. John Huss got a great following. He was a grand success. Of course, later they burned him on the stakes. John Huss taught more truths than Wycliffe taught. Later, Huss's teachings became foundation of Reformation. Huss believed in the predestination. He said that the total number of the Roman Catholic Church, the real Roman Catholic Church, is equal to the predestined people. Others are all, not members. The Roman Catholic Church he was a Roman Catholic priest, so he said that the true Roman Catholic is a predestined, selected person. Others were not Roman Catholics. They are in the church, but they are not part of the church. He distinguished between in the church and off the church. He said everybody in the church are not of the church. The of the church are the electoral. In the church there are all kinds of people. Yes. Only those who are elect are of the church. He taught that Christ is the head of the universal church. Pope and cardinals are not necessary for Christ's church, he said. Church can go without these people. They are an unwanted appendage the church is carrying. It's better to get rid of them. But this was the time of the great conflict in the church with the two popes. We talked about two popes and then third pope came and all that. So Pope John XIII in Avignon and Pope Gregory XIII in Rome. Pope John XIII, promised indulgences to all who would come to his side against the king of Naples, who was opposing the Pope John XXIII. John Huss, in early days, supported indulgences, but then he opposed. Pope John excommunicated John Huss. John Huss condemned the excommunication and said it has no value. John has appealed to the great General Council against Pope. The Emperor Sigismund in 1414 called a council at Constance. He actually wanted to heal the division. He also wanted to bring necessary reforms in the church. The Emperor invited John Huss to attend the council. He promised him safe conduct, that after the council you will be safely taken back to the place from where you came. But relying on that emphasis, John Huss went. But you know what happened? He was imprisoned by Pope John for heresy. And later he was condemned and he was burnt. You cannot even trust those people. Never. Huss, supported by the Bohemian people and the emperor himself, protested vehemently against his arrest. Pope replied, the arrest is purely canonical and not political. It was according to the rules of the church he was arrested, not according to the rules of the nation. To deceive heretics and to betray them was not a sin according to canonical law. The canon permits deception for heretics. Yes. William Tyndale was arrested like that. You know, William Tyndale was arrested by a young man called Philip. Philip was recruited by the cardinal, promised him, a great position in the church and forgiveness of all his sins if he will go secretly to Germany where Tyndale was. And then he went there, found out, and then pretended to be a very friend who wanted to discuss something, and then took him out for lunch one day outside, and there his people, took him by force, and then taken back to England, and he was burnt on stakes. So that's never a sin. So that means Roman Catholics had come very close to the Muslims, for the Muslims also to do anything to cheat the heretics for them, anybody who is not a Muslim, it's not a sin. You see, Bible teaches contrary, love your enemies, pray for them, be honest always to everybody. Let your words be yes means yes and no means no. So Pope's words doesn't have any meaning. He promised that protection would be given. But then Pope said that it's not a sin to violate those promises because he's a heretic. The shame, isn't it? Yes, John Hus was left in prison for more than 8 months without giving him an opportunity to defend his case. He was taken from prison to the cathedral in Constance. There on 6th July 1415, in the presence of princes, bishops and the emperor himself, he was degraded, putting on him dresses of lower orders until he wore the cloth of an ordinary man. Then finally they put upon him a cap, paper cap, on which was printed the pictures of devil. And then there was a writing, here is the heresiarch. The heresiarch. So they do that, they humiliated him like anything. Said that he slept on the concrete floors. He was not even given, a blanket in the cold season. He was persecuted, was not properly fed, nothing. But John has never decanted. He was led from the cathedral to the city gate, where he was tied to a stake, heaped firewood on it, tied him with cords. Those cords were thoroughly soaked in water because they won't burn before he will die. The wood was kindled, flames lit his body, and John Hus was burnt down as a martyr. Think of those days. When I watch some of these movies, it's very interesting. The bishop, the cardinal, and all the nuns and all these pious people will stand around this man being burned, and when they set the fire, they will all say, they will make the cross many times. I mean, they do it very religiously, very prayerfully. It's a good deed that they are doing. Jesus said that those who kill you, they will think that they are doing a service to God. Jesus said to his disciples that they will come. That exactly came. These people were thinking that they were truly they were doing a service to God, but they were not. It's shameful, isn't it? But John Wycliffe and John Hus, two men, great men, they have sown plenty of seeds. Now nobody could stop Reformation because these seeds will sprout and a harvest will come. It's a natural law. God has set this law in motion. In any areas, political areas, moral areas, economic areas, whenever there are abuses, and the abuses come to, its optimum, then that system has to go down. That we see in political administrations of whether Rome or even Babylon or whether it is any other country. In Marxism we have seen wherever the communism was there, the abuse was to the maximum. In Russia, in China, then communism had to go. It cannot. God will wait to intervene until the ordinary life of the common folks become impossible. That's God's principles. He will not just step in the moment there are abuses. No, because God has given them the authority. Yeah. And that's a principle God used in destroying the Canaanites. See, God promised Canaan to Abraham. But why was 430 years delayed? Because God said the sin of the Canaanites is not reached its stage where they can be destroyed. For destruction there must be a valid reason. And God won't do anything. They will do that, Naturally they will do it because they are on the way. They are going down. Few more feet to go before they will, will be. So God will wait. So it took another 430 years for the 7 tribes or people of Canaan, to mature their sin. Then it was right for God because they have gone too far. Now there is no return. You deserve to be destroyed. Yes, that's the way. That's true about Egypt also. Egypt also. You know why God has to perform 10 miracles in Egypt? Why can't God do the 10th one as the first one? No, plenty of opportunity must be given for self-correction. Plenty. 6 times Pharaoh hardened his heart. 4 times God hardened his heart. Is that reasonable? 6 times Pharaoh hardened his heart. He hardened his heart and said, no, I will not. Every time he said, yes, pray for me, I will. Once prayer was offered and the plague was taken away, then he hardened his heart. 6 times went. Because God will not destroy Pharaoh and his army until they are mature enough. The time has come. So sometimes people think that, God is patient, so do more. This is a danger. Nobody will say that God has been so patient to me that I have done so much sin, He didn't destroy me. I'm going to stop doing it before God will destroy me. No, He said that, what God? He hasn't done anything. If there was a God, He could have intervened. I have done so much. He kept quiet. So there must not be a God. No, God is waiting patiently. You go, your time will come. The Americans used to say, someday payday. Someday payday. You keep on working, there is a day when you get your pay. So anybody who practices any sin, remember this truth, that the period of mercy may extend very large. God may give you many opportunities. But His silence, His divine silence, cannot be interpreted divine approval. Divine silence does not mean divine approval. Divine silence simply means that it is not a time for God to act. There's a little more to go. God is not a person who will do a cesarean and take the baby out, early. No, it's a natural birth. Yes, the baby is there, it's growing, it will come out. God is not in a hurry. He is in control. So the same thing with Pope and Roman Catholic Church and all these things. The excesses will be dealt with and God does. So for a time being, I think that these people were successful. John Wycliffe, they wanted to kill but they could not. What did they do? The Pope ordered that his grave has to be digged, his bone must be taken out, it must be burned, and the ashes must be thrown over the waters. That's how they revenged him. They revenged him. But that's all they could do. God protected that man. He died after fulfilling what he wanted to do, or he was asked to do. So, John Wycliffe and John Huss. Yes, England and the nearby countries and Bohemia and the nearby countries, Germany and all these nearby countries, they were all, filled with the seeds of Reformation.
So when this Reformation happened and they wanted to go follow the apostolic church.
When the Reformation happened, it's happening now.
It's happening, when it's
Yeah.
happening, or when it happened those days. They go back to the, the way the early church people met, plural leadership.
All that. It's like this. A big mansion, a palatial mansion fell down. And you wanted to restore the mansion. So what happened? A man like John Wycliffe came and he just built the veranda. That portion. And then John Hus came, he built a little more, a small room. But it's very. And Luther came, of course he built the living room. John Calvin came, he built the bedroom. And it's keep going. That structure is not restored completely. Yes. Reformation is not complete. Reformation is keep going. There are few more, final touches to be given. And God is raising up people here and there to do that. Every generation somebody will come. When John Wycliffe started, the whole building was in ruin. There was nothing livable. And when John Hus came again, building was basically ruined. Martin Luther came, you only had a little veranda there and a little attic here, that's all. The building was not there. So he has added that these people could come in. Justification by faith, salvation by grace, that is. So it's keep going. Baptism came much later. The true doctrine of the Lord's Supper. And so many these things, So Reformation is keep going. Yes. And nobody has discussed about the doctrine of the local church, for example. They all saw the universal church. But the question was, where is the universal church? Did any of you have been to a universal church? Let's be honest. I would like to go next Sunday to universal church and break bread there. If church is a gathering together of born again believers, universal church is the gathering together of all the believers of the church age, right? Had there been a gathering together of all believers of the church age? No, so there is no universal church as a reality. I believe in universal church. Universal church is a becoming institution. It's a becoming institution. What we have today is the local church. The church at Corinth, the church at Ephesus and all. So this truth people didn't see. And a lot of things about the local church they didn't see. See in Jerusalem how many believers were there? At one time. The number of men was 5,000. 3,000 on the day of Pentecost, plus 120 who were already there probably. Then one time the number of men, Acts chapter 5, the number of men became 500 men. 500 men means at least 500 women plus all the widows. So I will say around 15,000. But let me ask, are there churches in Jerusalem? Read about churches in Jerusalem? No. It's always singular. There is only a church in Jerusalem. One city, one church. There are no churches in Ephesus, no church in Antioch, no churches anywhere. The local church means it's not that you meet in a locality, but in that locality you can have only one church. Because Jesus Christ has only one church, that truth is conveyed to the world by all believers in a given locality meeting together. Ask the church of that. The Jerusalem church had many meetings. They were all meeting in 15,000 people were not meeting in one house or anywhere. They were meeting in different houses for breaking bread and all. So I think that there was a meeting in the south side, north side, east side, west side, center side, this side, that side, and all that. They had meetings, but there was only one church. All the elders were common, all the funds were common. So they had common gatherings where the apostles or the mighty teachers of the world will teach. But then they will divide into smaller groups. They will meet in homes for fellowship and for breaking of bread and prayer meetings. See, that was the structure. So this idea, Even people who believe in local churches, you take a small city, there are 5 churches. How can? That's not local church. No, that idea is not there. That's unbiblical. So reformations keep going, I'm saying. Some of these truths are being taught. Yes, not everybody accepts it. No. On many areas, reformation is still going. Yes. And there are many areas that we have not seen. Maybe God willing, the next generation, somebody, the Lord will raise up. I won't be around there to hear those truths. I guess I'll be gone. But it will be there. So John Hus and John Wycliffe, 2 names, don't forget. Again, I say that it's good to do some study on these people. You can buy their biographies. Their biographies are separate books available on these people. You can go to some of these, bookstores or what you have nowadays through the online. You can buy them, read them. They're great men of God. They inspire you. They inspire. They have done great services to the cause of Christ. Bible became a living book again. That's John Wycliffe made the Bible a living book. Otherwise, Bible was a dead book. Nobody understood what they were being read. It's like if I cite, the New Testament, portions of the New Testament in Greek by Greek language, probably not one of you will understand because you don't know. That's not disqualification of the service, you don't know. But think of that every week after week after week, just from the Latin, Vulgate it was being read, nobody is understanding anything, everybody is just sitting there. John Wycliffe made Bible a living book by translating that into English so that people could read the book. And the Lollards went around preaching the Bible. So they don't know, they now know that, what the Bible teaches, what is said in the Bible. Otherwise nobody knew, nobody knew. So great service, John Wycliffe and John Hus. John Hus actually gone beyond John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe emphasized the Bible and certain teachings, but John Hus came forward and he questioned many more areas. And so he was a great man. John Hus was a great man, great mind, these people were. Pope and Emperor wanted to heal the division in the church, in the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic. They really wanted to. There are many reasons they wanted. Last week I said that, Pope wanted to establish his authority over more areas. He was not satisfied just being called the Pope of the Western Europe. He wanted to be the Pope of the Universal Church because he realized that the people in the Eastern Europe are also part of the church. So that means if he is not the head of the vicar of the eastern part of the Universal Church, then his power is limited. So he wanted to establish that. But he just cannot go and say that I want to be the Pope of all the Universal Church. So that he cannot say that. So he wanted to say that, hey, it's not good for us to be divided. We as Christians, we need to be, united. So sometimes a good thing can be done by a man from a bad motivation. Many people will say good things. It sometimes taken an extra sense to know what was the intention of that one. Some people are able to know that. They say, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. What you want. So what the Pope and the Emperor, they together called some of the councils. 3 general councils were called. They had 2 purposes one was to, actually they had 3 purposes in these councils. One was to heal the division, the second was to bring some reform in the church. Because they already begin to feel that if we don't do something, something is going to happen. Why? Because John Hus and John Wycliffe has, told the people too much about the evils that are going on. So if we don't do something, then we cannot keep the people inside. They're going to rebel. So before they rebel, let us do something. At least let us give the impression to the people that we are sincere and we wanted to, And especially those people who loved Wycliffe and Hus, they are very much hurt by the burning of John Hus and taking out the bones of Wycliffe and doing all that things. There's no one or two. Number of nobles and a lot of people honored those men because they were learned men, they were moral men, they lived simple life. They did not appropriate the money of the people for their luxuries. They lived simple, dressed simple, ate simple, they did everything. They were not a burden like the Pope and the cardinals who were always demanding, bring more, bring more, bring more. These people were doing a lot of good works. They were helping the poor people with the little they had. So they were not taking. So that was one thing they wanted, bring some reforms in the church. Then they had a third purpose, that is they had to suppress this heresy because it is growing. Even though the leaders are gone, that doesn't mean the followers are. Even though all the lowlands are destroyed, that does not mean that there are no people. Yes. Because the seeds are sown in the hearts of the people and it is sprouting and growing in these people. The common talk in the neighborhood talks, women getting together and talking about, hey, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? Children talking about it. Nobles talking when they get together. Hey, this guy, Pope, you know what John Husson said? The church can go without cardinals and Pope. Because there are no cardinals and Pope in the Bible when the church started. So these are, unnecessary appendages we are all carrying. So the nobles were discussing. Somehow the emperor and, of course, more than the emperor, the Pope wanted to suppress this heresy. For these three purposes, they called a council. First council was called in 1409 in Pisa. The second was in Constance, 1414 to 1418. The third at Basel, 1431 to 1449. So you know how many years they have taken. The first one was a short one, but the others were long. 4 years and then how many? 18 years. Long period of time. Why such long period was taken? The people who came together were not agreeing on these things. Some of them were also buying the ideas. So, when Pope and others found out that even some of the cardinals were saying that, I don't think Wycliffe was all that wrong. Look at the cloth of this man. 10 lakh suit. In a country where people don't have any clothes, you think about that, that's big progress, right? Yeah, I think that's big progress. So that's the sort of thing they were talking about, So, these dragged on. They could not come to the conclusions. Even though popes and all these people wanted to persuade them, hey, come on, agree to it. They were not saying, no, we cannot agree. If those people have pointed out some truth, what are we going to do about it? That is excesses, that's luxury. How much money is being burnt? Even the building the Sistine Chapel, cannot believe that. How many millions of tons of paint was used by Michelangelo. Painting the Sistine Chapel. All the saints of the Old Testament and the New Testament, the 12 persons and all everybody. That poor man has laid out like this and paint, with the brush. So every day you say that, 50 gallons of paint more. Otherwise I'm going to stop it right here. Saint will not be having eyes because eyes are not painted. There will be no left and all that. So, they had to provide. Where is the money? So Pope was ordering all the princes and all, before this date you have to send so many millions of francs or whatever they are, all silver coins and gold coins and this and this. Some of those people were also getting upset. And things were going, beyond their control. That was a fact. But yet they don't want to admit failure. At this time, the councils were viewed infallible and authoritative in the church. The councils were respected by So when a council come to a conclusion, that conclusion is accepted infallible conclusion. So the popes and others were very careful that what conclusion comes must be acceptable. Otherwise, if a wrong conclusion is made, people will take that conclusion as infallible. For this reason, councils were very, very difficult. It's 18 years, the third council from 1431 to 1449. You think about that. It dragged on. Conclusions cannot be drawn. Conclusions cannot be drawn. Yes. So, the council at Constance appointed Martin first as a legal pope and sold the system. There were, 3 popes. The council at Constance sold that one by appointing a third one and then requesting the other 2 that you people, for God's sake, resign. They also were tired, sick and tired, In Malayalam we say, Nair pidicha pulivai, The Nair got hold of the tiger and of the tail. The tiger wanted to go away. Nair also wanted to go away. So the question, who will take the initiative? Nair is afraid if I leave the tail, the tiger is going to catch. So tiger and Nair are going round and round and round. So that's somewhat of this here, it's going round and round anyway, finally they have solved that problem. Okay. In addition to burning hers, this council ordered the writing of Wycliffe to be burnt. All writings of Wycliffe must be burnt, including the translation of the Bible. Everything must be burnt. And in order, dig up that old man's bones, burn them and scatter them in the river. So that was the decisions of the second council, Constance. 2 decisions, right? All these 300, 400 bishops and all these people, princes are all coming down. They are discussing what to do with these things. You can just imagine, the shallowness and the meaninglessness of these councils. And they are not, there are serious issues these men have pointed out. Very serious doctrinal issues and abuses. They don't have time to think about any one of them. The third council at Basel was called to restore the unity of the church in Bohemia. Terrible slaughter of the followers of John Huss caused great hatred for the Roman church in Bohemia. John Huss's followers were brutally killed and blood was flowing like anything. So people, an average peasant and average businessman looked at Roman Catholic Church with a hatred and disgust. Murderers. So they wanted to heal that. So that this image that we have gained, we have done it, but that's true, but we have to whitewash and make our image a little better. So in 1436 an agreement was reached with the Hussites, who are the followers of Huss. It allowed some freedom of preaching. Okay, you guys do some preaching. We don't say don't preach all. But it also attempted to reform the clergy. It also allowed believers to participate in the cup also. Until that time, believers were not allowed to participate from the cup, only the bread. So then John Huss said that it is the right of a Lord's Supper is meaningful only when the believers participate the bread and the cup. Because Paul said that which I received from the Lord, is the bread, and that in like manner he took the cup and he blessed it and said that, you drink from it. So you cannot withhold the cup from the laymen, the people. Only the priest would drink, because it was basically liquor. So, so it is a fun to drink it. Yeah. And John F. Kennedy was assassinated, I have watched the TV and, because I always watch, but Mother Teresa was also, she died, I watched the whole funeral. The reason I wanted to watch is, what they do. Will at any point they will say that Mother Teresa was a godly woman with all the, faithful attendance of the church and the good works, her soul is entered into heaven and we don't need to pray for her. No. They couldn't say that because the system isn't perfect. Even Mother Teresa has to go through the purgatory. Isn't that terrible? The system does not permit anybody to go straight to heaven.
But now that she has been declared as a saint.
And that they can do that. The Pope has a right to pull her out of that. Yeah. See, the extra merit is in the hand of the Pope. So Mother Teresa had a lot of merit, maybe a few points only. So that Pope said that, give it to her, credit in her account. Take that mother out of it.
But when the Pope goes, he will also go to the...
Well, somebody has to, One of the Pope was asked once by a newsman, when he visited America, said that dear Father, will you go to heaven when you die? It's a big question. In American, these news reporters are smart guys. They only throw the bait, he has to bite. So he was very, 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 he thought for a moment and said that, I believe I will go when I die. What's the basis of that belief? The next question. That's a big question. He said, the prayer of what, 1.5 crore, how many crores of people?
1.5 billion.
Yeah. The prayer of so many people, will God overlook that prayer? In another sense, what? This man can go heaven only by the prayer of so many sinners. Who all praying every day 3 times, have mercy upon us, have mercy upon us, have mercy upon him also. So that's a system. This is a system. Nobody can live better than Mother Teresa as far as good works is concerned. She has done so much. At least in her case, they should say that thank you God for taking her directly to heaven. She doesn't have to go through purgatory. The system does not. The system makes everybody to go through the scanner, It's a little hot scanner. You have to go through that. That's. So, some years...
So you're telling something about Kennedy?
Yeah, yes. See this. John F. Kennedy died, and I have watched these things, and interestingly, there was mass offered. I don't know how many times mass was offered by the bishop of New York. The cardinal or archbishop was. By the time the last mass was there, 2 people were holding him because he was drunk. Honestly. They were supporting him because he has, every time after the mass he has to drink this. So 10-15 mass, you drink all that. Plus his usual drink. And plus to cover up the emotional strain. Well, this is an abuse of the system. Anyway, John has said that, let not the priest drink it all, give some to the infants also, because they deserve it. The Bible commands it. So, that was something. So the Bohemians, they said that. Okay, all right, we will allow you to participate from the cup also. Isn't that a great allowance? A man has to be burned on stakes in order to gain this. And a lot of his disciples were to be burned on stakes for the living people to participate from the Lord's Supper with the cup. Kasa and Vilasa. Otherwise only Kasa, no Vilasa for people. Isn't it terrible? Very terrible. Yes. So they have come in 1436, an agreement was reached with the Hussites. It allowed some freedom of preaching. It also attempted to reform the clergy. It also allowed believers to participate in the cup also, if they desire. The council also allowed special privileges to people who oppose the church. Yes. Simply because people oppose the church, they said, we are not going to, burn them down anymore. Simply because they oppose the church. If they do very severely, this wrong, that wrong and all that, if they oppose the church because of some excesses the priests do locally and all that, then we are going to overlook it. So at least that much concessions they were able to to do. This council at Basel also made some agreement with the representatives of the Eastern Church, which seemed to have healed the division of 1054. The Greek representatives agreed to accept the teachings of the Western Church in exchange for the help to put down the Turks. The Turks were going to attack Constantinople. Yes. The Patriarch of Constantinople and also even the Emperor, they were very weak and the Turks were very strong. So they appealed to the Pope. Because the Pope had all the army of Germany, France, Italy and all those things. So said, please tell those kings to send their armies to defend. In exchange, we'll accept some of those teachings, maybe, the divisions opened up about the clothing of the priest and the beard of the priest and the girdle of the priest and maybe the what you call the leftover bread used to ferment the following week's Lord's Supper and all this, such many things. And then there was more serious problems about the Holy Spirit and about some of the other areas, the Eucharist and all that, controversy. So they said that, okay, we will agree. However, when the report of the agreement reached the East, there was great opposition. The people said absolutely no compromise with Rome. No, we never wanted to accept Rome. So the representatives were condemned as heretics. These representatives who went for the council, they were condemned heretics. 10 years later, the Turks came and conquered Constantinople. That put an end to all attempts of unity. Now there is no meaning because Turks already conquered it. Pope cannot do anything. So both basically Eastern Emperor and Western Emperor are gone. The Roman Empire is basically gone. Yeah, this is sad. You think about the time when Constantine came, and then he gave the freedom to the church and how he made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire and the amount of freedom Christians enjoyed, the free air they began to breathe. And from there the air so polluted and so corrupted and people couldn't breathe, it's poisonous. So they had to rebel against. The corruption increased. God sometimes shows mercy to us. He gives us certain freedom. If we are not going to use that freedom properly, God is going to take that freedom away. This is a lesson we have to learn from, history. God's long suffering, his anger, he does not show his anger like Psalm 103 says, Yes, his long suffering is long, but that does not mean, for eternal, for infinity, he will, overlook our sins. No, he will not. Now the Renaissance, you know what the Renaissance are. You are not students of history, you definitely heard about Renaissance. Renaissance is a period of time when the art and all that comes. Basically, it is a classic, the learning the classics. The classics of Greeks and Hebrews and Latin and the great writings of Plato, Aristotle, Homer, and the Roman writers like Seneca and all these great, there are many, and they begin to be read and understand. And then again, the Renaissance came in arts, the paintings. They begin to paint the ancient themes, basically the themes of the Bible. Otherwise, the painting gone. They were painting whatever they want. But now people, after begin to study the Bible in the original languages, the stories of creation, the stories of the flood, Abraham offering Isaac, and all these things and everything, they wanted to put them into canvas. So the Renaissance paintings are so beautiful. You can even buy, go to an art bookstore. There are some, I'm sure in Bombay you have definitely. You can buy some of these, Renaissance paintings. They are very beautiful. They are very beautiful. Even if you can get get not the original, of course, millions of dollars will cost, but the reprints are available. So they're so beautiful, so nice. Yeah. The thing is that they were, realistic paintings. The new modern thinking of arts never came. These were realistic period when they only painted things as they are. So you don't have a head with the feet over it and another feet with an eye on it. That's a modern painting. You have to interpret. Even you ask the painter, what do you mean? He said, well, the artist never interprets this painting. That is for the beholders to interpret. So realism then gone, surrealism came, and so many classes of paintings came. Nowadays I don't know what is the latest. I don't keep any more reading on these things. I don't have the time. And I have found that the newspapers in Bombay don't carry any standard articles also. Hindu paper is not available. Hindu usually have some nice articles on such topics, but Bombay Times and all have dirty pictures and and advertisement by Big Bazaar and all these things are meaningless. It does not add. Anyway, the Renaissance has come. When the barbarians of Germany conquered the Western Empire, the ancient Greco-Roman civilization was almost wiped out. However, the barbarians never conquered the Eastern Empire for another 1,000 years. From 476 to 1453, the Eastern Empire was saved. So the Western Europe laid in ignorance and barbarianism. The Eastern Empire was preserved in ancient Greco-Roman civilization. The Byzantine Empire was a cultural empire. Men like Charlemagne occasionally put a little oil in the Western lamp. Crusaders also brought with them some culture from the East. Their contacts with the Arabs of Spain brought some culture. The real revival of learning called the Renaissance came as a result of trade and commerce. Yes. People were exposed to educated and cultured noblemen who inspired the Western noblemen to have education. They said, hey man, you can read your name, you can sign your name, huh? You still put your, a good touch up. That sort of, so why don't you start learning? So, they start a little bit learning. So, the Greco-Roman culture of the ancient world was brought back again. People began to read classical language and learning of Latin became respectful. They began to make a change. Does education change people? Oh yes. A man is what he reads. A man is what he reads. From the statements, the talks and the behavior of a person, you can almost say that what is he reading. If he is looking at ugly things and reading ugly things, his behavior and his, it will be ugly. If there will be no enlightenment on his face. If he is reading some good materials, moral materials, ethical materials, the man will be changed. His language will be changed. Yes. So, there were some changes definitely brought. So, Renaissance, definitely. In Italy, the men of early Renaissance were totally irreligious and immoral. And the whole movement of Renaissance seemed to be a revolt against asceticism. Men began to explore man's freedom from restraint and ignorance. In Italy, that's what happened. Italy.
What triggered the Renaissance?
Well,
is it the flow of Eastern literature because of the destruction of...
The Renaissance came because, how long you can go ignorant and stupid. I mean, there's a natural logic. Suppose a family is there, but children are not learned, but people around are learning and all that. So you naturally have a tendency. So as I said, the business people, Europe was going to buy spices from the Arabs. The Arabs had gone to the eastern countries like India and China and all these countries. Those countries were far advanced. Far advanced. You know the story of how Vasco da Gama, when he came, he has brought in some clothes, coerced clothes from, Spain and all, thinking that all the Indians are naked, so, like sackcloths, so a whole ship full of, you want to do a favor that, clothe these savages in India. But he came and he landed in a car park, near Calicut, and of course he had a meeting with Samudri, who was ruling there. So Samudri gave him a sari, it was in a small matchbox. So opened the matchbox, 7 meters of clothes in a small matchbox. This man went back and drowned all the clothes in the ocean.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you ask me whether I'm a first-hand witness or not. Historical books say yes. Historical books say yes. You know what calico is? Calico is a cloth that was manufactured in Calicut. It said that he has purchased plenty of calico clothes in his ship. The calico cloth is not bleached, that's the only difference. It is unbleached. പഴയ മലയാളികൾ അമ്മച്ചിമാർ മാതിരി. So India was far, Kerala was far, actually, I don't want to say India, Kerala was far advanced. So this culture they came across, they have come across these cultures. So they went there and they spread this news. Hey, we have brute power, we can go and fight. We know how to swing our swords and all that. We can fight with our oars against the waves and all that things and all that. But those people there have character, have education, they have art and they have nice clothes and everything. So though these news, such news, the Arabs also are well-dressed people, they were, yes. So that made a big difference. That made a big difference. Even the Jewish people were far advanced people. Even the picture we get from the Old Testament, yeah, they were far advanced people. They were not Westerners, they were Orientals, They were all part of this culture. So the Western culture was no education, no culture. So Renaissance was a natural result of these things. They then began to learn languages and they had a culture, they had a culture. The Greeks had a culture. And even the Romans had a culture. Augustus and Julius Caesar and all those things, they were not uncultured people. That was gone by the time of Constantine, then things began to change. So they wanted to go back and dig some of these literatures and all that. They start studying Hebrew and Greek and Latin and all these things, and then they found out that there was a world once upon a time where people were more sophisticated and more, cultured, where they treated men like men. So these things begin to improve. So the Renaissance scholars in Italy were very bad, but in other places they were not. Some of the popes were simply pagans with carnal appetites. Alexander VI was a man of this sort. The sinful and luxurious lifestyle of the popes necessitated a lot of gold and money to flow from several Western European countries to Vatican. They used different methods to take gold and money to Vatican. People of Europe were upset about these things. In Florence, Italy, there was a priest, you know what is his name? Savonarola. Savanarola. He was a priest. He preached against the wickedness of the popes. He attacked Pope Alexander VI very vehemently. He did not attack the Roman Catholic Church, but he attacked the abuses in the Roman Catholic Church. He attacked only the wickedness of the priests and the bishops. However, the clergy and the bishops got infuriated. They hanged him in 1498 and burned his body. So anybody who will attack